Some player ratings then for the British and Irish Lions following that match against the First Nations Pasifika team. The Lions laboured to a victory, and the big question is which players have really put themselves in the conversation for a Test Match 23 spot. Today, as I record this, it's Wednesday in Australia. In fact, it's 10 past 11. You'd probably think right now, as I record this, Andy Farrell and his coaches are probably sitting down to have a big debate about who is going to make the 23 for the second test in Melbourne. I will be at that game. I'll be amongst the fans. And if you appreciate the content on the channel, please do hit subscribe. But most importantly, give me your thoughts in the comments down below on what you think about the ratings. I'm going to give each player in the 23 a mark out of 10, a few comments. And then most importantly, how does that change the picture for test selection this weekend? Let me know what you think in the chat down below. Now, coming into this match against the First Nations Pasifika, the players I was particularly looking at was with the potential injury to Joe McCarthy, one spot on the bench is available. Could go to a second row. Scott Cummings and James Ryan were starting. Could go to a back row and you had Morgan, Van der Fleer and Pollock. So those 5 players in contention for one spot on the bench, you felt. If not starting, potentially, I guess. I'll come on to that conversation in a little bit. And then in the back line, with the back 3 not playing very well, you were looking at Darcy Graham. More likely, you were looking at Blair Kinghorn, potentially to take a spot in the starting side, maybe on the bench. And then an outside shot, because of the composition of the bench, Marcus Smith and Bundy Aki were the 2 there. If it was going to be Blair Kinghorn on the bench, then that might put Owen Farrell in the frame. So those are the players going into this First Nations Pasifika game I was looking at. And I was also really interested to see at what point in the match those players were removed from the action and what we can read into that. So yeah, lots to talk about. And I'll go through my team for the test after I've done this. But let's go through the rankings. Pierre Schoeman, I've given him a 4 out of 10. It's weird this week. The first test match, which, the Lions won and were by far the better team, but the scrum, they didn't get an edge. And in this game, they got pumped. Taniela Tupou got right into Pierre Schoeman and absolutely marmalised him, had him on toast, which says to me that Taniela Tupou has been cast away from the Wallabies team. I mean, I was saying this before last week. Get Tupou in. He's a difference maker. Joe Schmidt decided to go a different way, and he's got egg on his face at this point, because how could you not have Taniela Tupou in? He absolutely smashed Pierre Schoeman, who's had a brilliant tour up to this point. But unfortunately, I think that was his chance of a test spot gone, barring an injury to Porter or Genge. That will be the last rugby that Pierre Schoeman plays. He's had a good tour until that match. Jamie George, I've given him a 5.5. I don't know what happened to his arrows. That's something you normally absolutely rely on Jamie George for. And there was a lot of people talking with the poor performance of Ronan Kelleher off the bench, relatively poor. It wasn't that bad. But George may be able to get himself onto the bench because he's very, very reliable. But errors did creep in and things didn't quite go to plan. And that makes me wonder, because Jamie George is so reliable, that makes me wonder, was this a squad of players who, for the most part, knew this was their last game, were thinking maybe I'm probably not going to be involved in the test match. And there was a load of new players that had come into the squad from the outside. Did all of those things together just mean it just didn't quite click, particularly when you look at the set piece. That might have been one of the ways, scrum and line out. And I had to give Finlay Bealham a 4 out of 10 for the same reason. He got absolutely humped at scrum time. Finlay Bealham, let me not take this away from his tour. He wasn't named in the original squad, came in because of the injury to Xander Fagerson, and he has been absolutely brilliant, and he couldn't have done more. It wasn't a night for the Lions front row. Better in the second row, I've given James Ryan a 6. And to be clear, a 6 out of 10 for me is like, you know what, you did your job. That was solid. That's where I put a 6 out of 10. And I think James Ryan was that. He hit loads of rucks. He made some big shots in defence. Gave away a couple of penalties, got the yellow card. So all in all, a performance there. It was interesting he got taken off, not Scott Cummings, which, with Joe McCarthy being injured, does that mean James Ryan is potentially in the picture on the bench? I'll come to that at the end of the video. I gave Scott Cummings a 7. I thought, again, he gave a really, really good performance. Went around rattling people. And there weren't many players from the Lions side that were getting over the gain line. Scott Cummings was one of them. I do think, though, with him playing 80 minutes, that probably means he's one of the guys that's not going to be involved in the Test Match 23. Although, I think his performances on tour would merit him being on the bench, potentially. That's the second row. Let me know what you think. Again, it would be crazy if we all agreed. But so, yeah, completely speak up for the person you loved. This isn't personal. It's just an opinion, and give me yours. Jack Morgan, I gave a 6.5. I did some really nice things in the first half. A couple of turnovers. One really good one where him and Josh van der Fleer were on the ball. Another one that he got on his own. And that's what you get, is a jackal threat from Jack Morgan. Want to see a little bit more of that kind of line-bending carries. He carries hard, but none of the Lions back row with Pollock, van der Fleer and Morgan really dented the opposition line. And that was one of the things that was missing from the Lions' performance. A 6 out of 6.5, solid performance, and could well, with the fact he got taken off after 50 minutes, could well be the guy that makes the extra body on the bench if Joe McCarthy is unavailable. That would be probably my best guess about what is going to happen. I gave Josh van der Fleer a 6.5 again. Lots and lots of hard work. Again, lacking that sort of heavy carry, which the game demanded and which the Lions did so well at the weekend. Henry Pollock wasn't his night. Gave him a 5.5 out of 10. He struggled a little bit. Now, he came into the tour with all the hype, and it hasn't really been at that level. The reality hasn't matched the hype beforehand, but that should not take away from what an amazing, absolutely incredible 2025 it has been for Henry Pollock, who is probably, what month are we in? July. He's probably going to win World Breakthrough Player of the Year, and rightly so. He's played more rugby for the Lions than he has for England. 22 minutes of rugby for England. We'll wait and see if he gets any more in the autumn. But what a year it's been for Henry Pollock. Hasn't been his tour. A lot of people were thinking he might break his way into the Test squad. I don't think that's going to happen. And he's got a bit of maturing to do. He's got plenty of time, and he's a wild and brilliant talent. So don't let the 5.5 for Henry Pollock, which will probably be his last rugby of the tour, don't let that take away from any of that. 7 out of 10 for Ben White as we move into the back line. I thought he's really good. He gets to the ruck quickly. He gets the ball away quickly. And that quick service and that good distribution and the fact he's got a good whip on his pass, he can get it that little bit wider. And the Lions were able to use that to get to the edge and get some positive stuff, especially in that first 20 minutes. Ben White was at the heart of the good stuff that the Lions did bring. Will it be enough for him to get on the bench for the Test? I don't think so. Alex Mitchell's been really good, and Alex Mitchell was left on the bench for the entire 80 minutes, and Ben White played 80 minutes. That says to me, Ben White's a great backup, good to go if there's an injury, but Alex Mitchell is the guy that's going to be continuing on the bench. Finn Smith, wasn't a great night for him, and he looked frustrated at times. That is what happens when you're a fly half and you don't have any front football to play from. I think if Finn Russell had been the fly half in this game, he wouldn't have had his best night. That's just the way it goes. But I thought he did lots of nice things. And so he's been given a bit of stick. I've seen some sort of not favourable write-ups. I thought he was all right, and you have to put the context in that it was the forward pack did not get a good platform for the fly half, and I thought Finn Smith did all right, and actually I quite liked his combination with Owen Farrell. Duhan van der Merwe, it has not been his tour. I'm an Englishman, so I know just how good Duhan van der Merwe is, because he always pulls it out the back against my team. In the red of the Lions, it just hasn't happened for him, and he looks scared when it goes to the air, which when teams play against Duhan van der Merwe, they seem to do a lot. They seem to know that that's his weakness, his kryptonite, and so they exploit it. And he got caught in the backfield. He got exposed a few times, and yet he got another try and a brilliant finisher. But all round, he's not going to trouble the selection conversation because he can be exposed and was again, unfortunately for him. If you disagree with that, Mark, absolutely fine. Let me know what you think. 7.5 for Owen Farrell. I thought he was the pick of the Lions players. Looked really smooth, good distribution, good decision maker, 2 assists, the lovely little kick through for the first try, and then the little double pump dummy pass for another try as well. I thought his combination with Finn Smith was really good. However, and this is what I think might count against Owen Farrell for potential Test selection on the bench, is when there wasn't a back row for the Lions, which was able to get across the gain line, which they didn't have, then you need someone somewhere else who can do that line denting. And Owen Farrell has lots and lots of great qualities. As a 10, as a 12, he doesn't have that ability to, really punch across the gain line. He carried okay, but he's not Bundyaki. And he doesn't quite have that explosivity of Sione Tuipulotu. So I don't know if he'll trouble the selection conversation. He should have put himself in the mix, because in the 2 games he's played off the bench for one, and this one he played the full 80. He looked really good. Jamie Osborne outside him, I've given a 6. I feel a bit harsh about that score, actually, because he scored 2 tries and he did really well, and actually started at centre, slotted on the wing and showed his versatility because he was good in both. However, when he was moved to the wing, again, a bit like Duran van der Merwe, got kind of caught out a little bit, exposed, and that is a team system thing, isn't it? And you've got a lot of new pieces being juggled around, thrown in together. That's probably likely to happen. I thought Jamie Osborne did really, really well. So again, 6 to me is a solid, you did your job. There was a few errors, but then he scored a couple of tries, and he's definitely a guy that will be wearing that jersey again in the future. He's young, he's very, very talented, and so versatile. You can see why Andy Farrell really likes him. He's a class player. I went for 7 out of 10 for Darcy Graham, only on the field for 17 minutes, but in that 17 minutes, he looked electric. And do you know what he has, which no one else in the Lions squad has, is just kind of raw pace. Top end pace. Tommy Freeman's really, really quick. Mac Hansen, James Lowe, really quick when they get up to full speed. But that kind of hot stepping explosivity off the mark, maybe is lacking in this Lions team. Darcy Graham brought it, and you had to feel for him that he went off. So even though he was only on the field for 17 minutes, I've given him a 7, one of the better marks out of the Lions team. Blair Kinghorn, though, on second watch, not a great night for him. And did he blow his audition for a test spot? Because he would have been right in the frame. If he'd have played well, he'd have been right in the mix, because the back 3 for the Lions, and Kinghorn can play wing or fullback, they were not good against Australia. And I'm sure that's one of the players that Andy Farrell and the coaches would have been looking at. Hugo Keenan was not great. However, you look at Blair Kinghorn and went, 2 interception passes, looks good at times, but made some errors. Do you know what? Actually, we'll just stick with Keenan. I wonder if that's how they're going to go off the back of that. We'll see. And that is the 15. As for the bench, I'll rattle through these. Ewan Ashman didn't have enough time on the bench to be given a grade, really. Same goes for Rory Sutherland. Although I will say the scrum solidified a little bit as the game went on. Ewan Ashman did mess up a line-out throw, but again, that could be a system error. I've given a 6.5 for Thomas Clarkson, who actually I thought did a good job and sorted the scrum out, or seemed to, when he came on. I think he's going to be a real quality player. And his selection was criticised as some kind of Irish bias when he came in. No, he is the next best tight head prop that's available. Tight head prop being a weak position for the Lions, and he looks like a real talent. I've given a 6 to Gregor Brown. Didn't look out of place when he came on. Solid job in the 20 minutes that he played. Ben Earl, pick of the guys off the bench for me, finally added a little bit of go forward in the carry, something that was massively lacking in that team generally. Alex Mitchell didn't get on the pitch. Marcus Smith was on for 7 minutes before he went off with an HIA, which could change the picture on the bench. I'll come to that in a minute. Gary Ringrose cut some lovely lines when he came on, and he will be cursing the fact he got that injury, because it's let Huey Pilotu in, and possibly that could cost Gary Ringrose. This was his first Lions tour, but in terms of an actual test cap, we'll have to wait and see. I wonder if the Lions win the second test, guys like Gary Ringrose might get the test call up and a start perhaps, as Andy Farrell changes things for the third test. Gary Ringrose will be desperate for the Lions to win the second test so that he can maybe be a test Lion. We will see about that. That's my marks. Now, this was the team, let me remind you, for the last test, the first test. This was the selection. Now, Joe McCarthy hasn't taken part in training. I suspect that means he'll be out of the second test, potentially. We'll wait and see. But if that's the case, let's operate on that basis. How does that change things? For me, Chesham goes into the team at second row. Keep the pack exactly the same as it is. Otherwise, that opens up one spot on the bench for either a second row, Cummings or Ryan, or a back row, Morgan, Pollock, Van der Fleer, being some contenders there. What would you do? What would you be thinking? I think James Ryan coming off suggests that maybe he's ahead of Cummings in the pecking order, although personally I would have Cummings as the next best based on what we've seen on the pitch. But as we know, there's a lot that we don't see. The training, and Andy Farrell knows these players inside out. You've got to take into account all of what he knows about them in the years gone by and how they fit into the system. We saw that with the selection of Curry and Byrne, and that was absolutely the right call, as was proved last weekend in the first test. So it won't just be on the games in this tour, and it shouldn't be, because the opposition, generally speaking, are not that great. So what judgments can you make against playing subpar opposition? So I think it's going to be Jack Morgan. I think the fact he came off after 50 minutes, he's been so good on tour, he's been brilliant this year. Six Nations, he was absolutely immense for Wales. Last autumn, he was carrying the Welsh team on his back. I think he will get his test spot on the bench. Two back rows, which you can manage when you've got Byrne, McCarthy, and Byrne, Chesham and Itoje in the starting lineup. So I'm going to say Jack Morgan comes in, Chesham to start, and that is your pack taken care of if everyone else is fit and available. As for the back line, we've got a question mark over Marcus Smith with his HIA. We've got a big question mark over the back three because Lowe was poor. Tommy Freeman did not have a great game, and Hugo Keenan made errors as well. So all of those spots you would say could potentially be up for grabs. What would happen though? Mac Hansen is fit and available again and wasn't included in this game against First Nations Pasifika. I would suggest that means he's going to be in the thinking. And what my best guess is Mac Hansen will come in, maybe for Tommy Freeman. But then does that mean Tommy Freeman goes to the bench? Should he be bombed out of the 23 entirely? I would keep Bundyaki in the mix personally, because you can cover wing with a guy like Hugh Jones if there's an injury. But you can't really replace a ball-carrying 12, which, as this game against First Nations Pasifika proves, is quite useful. Marcus Smith and that HIA, that's an interesting one. And potentially, could that be the change on the bench? Owen Farrell coming in. He had a really good game, looked good off the bench last time. Are you doubling up because Farrell's been playing 12 for the Lions but can play 10? Should it be Finn Smith because he is a fly half? That's going to be a really interesting one. So, and is that a bit harsh on Tommy Freeman? Should Mac Hansen be coming in for James Lowe? Should Blair Kinghorn still be coming in for Hugo Keenan? There's lots of questions which are going to be answered fairly soon. But those are just some thoughts to get the cogs turning. I'm going to say, if I had to pick a 23 right now, that would probably be the 23 I would pick. Although I do feel harsh on Tommy Freeman, who has been good. There we go. I'm going to leave it there. We'll wait and see when Andy Farrell picks his team, I guess, tomorrow. I'm going to go now because it's 11:30 Australian time as I record this. So I've got a little bit of time to get changed into my stash, get down for our game. And I'll report back on that later. If you appreciate the content on the channel, please hit subscribe. Let me know what you think. I'll see you on the next one.